friends, welcome. Today I want to share with you a lovely conversation that I just finished up with my friend Kelsey Leigh. She lives in New York City. She is a few things. She is a bike messenger, which is a highly intense job. She is a YouTube creator. She studied acting. Just a general creative human with a lot of wonderful thoughts to share. I wanted to speak to her about the importance of community for the creator, because she is richly associated with a few communities in New York City, and so I wanted to pick her brains about that. Side note, while we were recording this, I was also live streaming to Instagram, so you may hear me reference that. I used a highly experimental spaghetti noodle concoction of chords so that they could hear her, and it was... So anyway, if you hear me talking about Instagram Live, that's why. If you are interested in the things that she creates, I will link below to her things. Please check her out. She's a fantastic human. Enjoy. How's it going, Kelsey?
It's going great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I am excited to talk to you about the importance of community in creativity and in the artistic community and putting yourself around good people that help you stay inspired, this sort of thing. And I think that a good place to reference, or a good thing to reference, would be your most recent video that you put out, your short documentary, a short film-esque experience called Huntress. And I think that that demonstrates the power of the community that you guys have within the bike messenger world. Mm-hmm. But I also know that you are connected with a lot of people, a lot of creative people in New York in general, and a lot of other, just a lot of people in general. And first off, I'm curious, how would you describe the community you surround yourself with on a daily basis?
Oh, very diverse.
Okay.
Because I am, I would say prominently with cyclists, but cyclists that come from all backgrounds, rich, poor, different countries, different races, different genders, everything, different senses of identity, but sort of united by the bike. And then there's also different forms of artistic expression, whether it's videographers, photographers, painters, singers, all of those people. Sort of New York's underground, I would say, is very diverse in that way. And anyone who is just expressing themselves and putting out art and wanting to represent their especially if they're a native New Yorker, represent their neighborhood, where they grew up, their home. It's just a very diverse, unique, but also very welcoming, because I find that a lot of there's little sub-communities and things, and they all sort of blend together and mesh, and people from different sort of, different things that they do just kind of mesh with other people, and you end up mutually being connected to a lot of people that you didn't know. So yeah, just very diverse and welcoming, I would say. Yeah.
When did you move to New York City?
Oh gosh, I think 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
How old am I? Yeah.
6 years, that's a long time. I'm sure it just feels like an eternity of time, right?
Yeah, I kind of feel like I've always been here now.
Yeah. Well, you definitely have made your way into the realm of the New Yorker by becoming a bike messenger. Like, on the Huntress video, my favorite part was the part where you guys went into you went into the messenger mode, and everything was intense, and you're flying through cars and stuff, and there was one shot where you were like, you ducked from a mirror. It was like an action movie. It was exciting. And that was so interesting to me. And there was one shot where one of the girls, I don't think it was you, I think it was another one of the girls, she was going, and she just almost clipped a bumper, but she swung her bike around. It was yeah. And I think that's a very intimate way to get acquainted with New York City.
Oh my gosh, is it ever? Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that, so what I'm curious about is when you first moved to New York, how did you integrate yourself within that community?
Well, actually, I was here before I even rode a bike. I was here for a few years. I went to acting school. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing about actors per se. Nothing wrong with actors or acting or being an actor, but I found that actually community was something I struggled with for the first few years because of acting's just being inherently tied to the entertainment industry. There's a lot of things that come with that are there's a lot of narcissism, competition, vanity. There's a lot. So I found that like yes, I had lots of friends from school or friends from acting events or things like that, but there was always that undercurrent of like we can't support each other, or I can't support you because there's not enough room for both of us. Because there are thousands of people here in New York that want to be actors, that want to break in, and because of the very exclusive industry that's common here, it's really difficult. And so I found that I'd have friends of people, but there was this sense of community that was lacking because no one wanted to really come together to lift each other up or help each other out, because there was this feeling of like, oh, if you succeed, I won't. There's this sort of cutthroat kind of thing where everybody's out for themselves. And that's not to speak badly about that. It's just a symptom of the entertainment industry and how it breeds this sort of like competition and just insecurities among people, preventing them from really expressing themselves as artists and just purely being in that like, hustle network sort of social game mode.
What can you do for me? What can I do for you?
Yeah, exactly. And it was just hard for me to establish myself in a community that felt safe and welcoming and uplifting. And that's what I was looking for. And it's also better, to be creatively inspired that way. But I didn't find it. And, I wish all of my acting friends well and things, but I do believe that there's room for everybody, everybody can be successful. So it was a little hard, and I felt a little isolated while I was here in the city for my first few years. But all of that changed once I rode a bike, because you can just ride your bike through the city on any given day and see a cyclist that you instantly, like when you see them, you feel some sense of connection, whether it just be how they ride, how they express themselves on their bike, maybe if they're listening to a certain kind of music, or however, because there's so many ways that you can really express yourself when you're choosing to use a bike as opposed to just like riding the subway or sitting in a taxi cab, So I found I was just meeting all of these people, these excellent people that rode bikes. And every time I was connected with one of them, there was this incredible sense of uplifting each other. How can we come together? How can we uplift each other? How can we help each other out? And how can we support each other? And I was just blown away by that element just from being united by cycling. And as I started working as a messenger. So as I started doing that, of course, like you're on the streets every day, all day. So you're meeting so many people and you're being exposed to different types of cyclists and different types of creatives. And I find that like so many people that I know that are especially bike messengers is they have some creative passion, an angle, like an artistic angle. It's really rare for a messenger to just be like, yeah, I'm just a bike messenger and that's it. Like the reason that people feel drawn to this kind of job is because it gives you so much freedom to work on other things creatively. So you'll constantly see like a bike messenger with a camera, a GoPro, even like me, a film camera. Film is really big here in New York. Just all of that, documenting all of that kind of stuff, street photography, poetry, painting, anything, people are always like doing their thing. So, and I found that the people I met, especially as I started to do more like YouTube and everything, it was all like, how can we come together? Like, how can I contribute to what you're doing? How can you contribute to, just like I was saying, just both uplifting each other. So yeah, that was how I kind of found my way to more of living with a community sense, which I really, really appreciate because you're so much stronger when you're together, and it also helped me to use what I am passionate about, which is video, to bring together the women because there's there's marginally less women bike messengers, and because of that, there's a sense like we don't always know each other or know of each other just because there's so few of us. So with the film, it was also a way for me to kind of bring together the women and establish our own community and, get other women hyped and everything. So yeah, it's just like an ongoing cycle, not to use that word.
Well played.
But yeah, I'll do that once. I gave myself one.
No, I want at least 15 more times.
Yeah.
At least. This won't be complete until we reach at least 15 more uses of the word cycle.
Or
and
rolling.
Or linking,
Linking, yeah.
linking things together.
Yeah.
Spokes. No, can't really. Really doesn't work.
Common spokes. Similar spokes.
Oh yeah. We're all spokes on a tire,
True, we are.
Yeah.
I mean, are we?
I think that's
Be the spoke, don't be the tire.
that's one of the most humanitarian things that I think I've ever said. It's really special, yeah. Oh, so it's interesting because you made the contrast between being in a community that was a little bit harmful for you, even though it had its good parts, I'm sure, and finding a community that really fed you well. How were you able to transition between the two, and when did you realize that the second community was so wonderful for you?
I think when I realized that the transition was pretty, I guess, natural. It wasn't really forced. It was just like the more I rode my bike, the better I felt. And I think, and it also allowed me to open myself creatively. Whereas sometimes when you're a working actor and all you're doing is auditioning, you can't really exercise your creative muscles because you're just waiting for phone calls. Like it gets kind of, draining. But I think the realizing it was just sort of once I met enough people, I realized that we were all kind of united under one common thing, which is just like, I just want to feel good. I just want to ride my bike and feel good and help others feel good. And just sort of celebrate, because cycling, especially like urban cycling, is kind of a niche thing, and so just sort of celebrating your differences and what puts you apart from the world. I think the moment when I sort of appreciated, sorry,
I was waving at the Instagram live stream that we currently have going on here.
You're really good at multitasking.
I'm trying.
Yeah, once I just saw that essentially the community was already there, cycling in New York, bike messengers, such a strong community already established, whereas acting, it kind of needs it and it struggles. So I kind of realized that once, and especially like cyclists use their access to community for good. There's a lot of like charity rides, charity events, social events that are just meant for benefiting like humanity in general, and benefiting humanity in general, and not benefiting just the individual.
Which is where I think the rubber really meets the road.
Yes, yes, it does. Because
I'm proud of that one.
Good one. That was a good one.
Thanks.
Makes contact. Frictionless, But yeah, I think once I saw all of that, it kind of made me realize how any sort the acting community, everyone's just kind of united under their own individual goal, which is to be successful and to be like a famous actor, right? Everyone has those sort of delusions of grandeur when you're in acting school or whatever. And that's how acting professional, like teachers and whatever, kind of pull people in, because they sell them this idea of like, I'll make you successful, right? So no one in the bike community is really like selling you anything. It's just it's just, can we all feel good? Can we all like enjoy life? Can we
Yeah.
all just like enjoy the ride? So once I
Well,
kind
I
of noticed
think,
that contrast, it was like,
yeah. Well, and
there's nothing wrong with pursuing obviously like big goals. Like I still, if I still want to pursue acting, but I think it's still kind of a solo pursuit in a way in the beginning if you don't have any connections or whatever. I mean, obviously the acting world of people who are consistently working as actors like that have made it, I guess, they're together as a community and they're using their means to better the world in the ways that they know best. But that's like at a higher tier. That's like the elite level. Whereas to benefit a community in your city or your town or whatever, all you have to do is just like ride a bike. So it's
yeah.
pretty cool.
Well,
Just
I
this
think
idea.
what you speak to there is how important it is to have a very pure, right community for you in your creative interests and the things that truly make you come alive. Finding that right community is crucial if you're going to be in another community that's a little more cutthroat.
Yeah, it's
I,
very true.
I think a lot of people struggle with feeling like they're in the wrong community. I've struggled with that. And living where I live here in Utah, it's like we moved here, we found some more creative people, but at the same time, you learn quickly what creative people you are not so interested in.
Yeah.
And over time, you start to realize that finding a really positive community is a difficult thing to do, and it takes a lot of work. And I think you have to look at it that way. I think you stumble upon it. I think you get very lucky and you stumble upon a good community sometimes. But I think you have to be intentional about cultivating that. And if you live in New York City, it's a little bit easier than if you live in Wisconsin. But if you live in Wisconsin, you have the internet. And I think that you may not even know what you're missing in a good community sometimes. I think that you will spend months and years in a deficient state and something will not feel quite right. And
Right. Yeah.
sometimes part of what can fix that for you is getting around a good group of people who share your interests. And I guess what I want to speak to people is the importance of for people who actually really do struggle with finding the right community for them. They feel like they're disconnected from the people they want to be around. Put in the work
Yeah,
to make the
because it's a mix
friends.
of identifying which community welcomes you without any tension, So you shouldn't have to work exhaustingly to enter a community, if it's right, there shouldn't be like entry fee or like, there shouldn't be any kind of initiation that just you should be welcomed into the community that's right for you. But then there's also the other half is also figuring out what you can contribute to the community and what you add to it. Yeah. And then it just sort of like bounces off each other and builds up from there.
Yeah, and what I'm speaking to is specifically when people are in their house, they are not getting up to go find the people, but they're frustrated that they don't have the people in their life. I think you have to put in the work to go shake hands.
There. Yeah.
Right. And
I've always felt that way about anything, even in acting community, like whatever little community there was. You have to put yourself out there. People have to know like what you're about. You have to, even if you're afraid that people won't like you or people won't vibe with you, you still have to kind of put yourself out there, whatever that means to you, in order for people to be like, oh, like, there's something there. There can't be just sort of an expectation that it'll just come to you. Like, again, like just sitting inside your house. It's hard. I mean, you could foster online community, I suppose, but the type that really enriches you, the type that lives tangibly in the real world, you have to go out there and identify it and work towards it. Yeah, you just have to put yourself out there. And I've always said that, like, if you put yourself out there, it'll come. Because I wasn't totally aware of the bike messenger community or even the YouTube community in New York until I started really like, putting myself out there with my videos. And then it was like, then kind of through that, it just sort of revealed itself to me, but I wouldn't have found it unless I had been expressing myself,
Mm-hmm.
just doing my video work and expressing myself in that way. I wouldn't have, it would have taken me a lot longer to be aware of the communities that were already taking place, like already,
Mm-hmm.
happening and flourishing and all of that. So,
So it's a good idea to work to put yourself in the right rooms with the people, whether that
hmm
means physically in a room with the people or to find those people online and just tweet
hmm
them. But I also think it's important to come to them with the right mindset, and I think that that should be the mindset of somebody who is interested in bringing value and contributing to the life of the person that you're trying to interact with. I think that especially when it comes to like networking events and this sort of thing, it's so easy to get confused about what your motivation should be. And for me, I think the best strategy for happiness, if you're trying to make friends in the world, make the friends that you want to make in the world, is to come to them and try to bring more value to them in the relationship than they can bring to you. Like bless them more than they can. You
hmm
want to try to out uh, give them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah, because support is really important, and I always do my best to support those around me the way that I would want to be supported. And it costs you nothing, really, to support someone and uplift them. It really costs you nothing.
Mm.
So, and it will only bring you like good things in the end. So, there's really, it should, focus on yourself, but also focus on how you can contribute to others
Yeah.
and lift up others, especially if you're in a position to do so. Like if you have influence or following or whatever, I always am like, I get it. I mean, I push myself to do it more. Like, how can I focus on other people more? And, it's not just like the Kelsey show. I don't want it to just be the Kelsey show all the time,
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And also not forcing anything, because forcing anything will, in the long run, it will never pan out how you want, even though you think you're controlling it or whatever. Some creative relationships are just not meant to be. Some creative relationship, the best ones are the ones that just kind of happen spontaneously, and it's just a function of, two energies speaking to each other really well, and that's all you have to do. And as long as you're being like true to yourself and expressing yourself, the right, you'll find the right, whatever meshes with you, the right people, the right community, all of that. So,
Mm-hmm. Well, I think back to when we first met at the no, it was the pop-up shop before the Hustle and Wine. Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
And I remember that my goal going into that whole experience was to try to be I have this idea in my head that if I want to make friends, I need to be a good friend to somebody,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
when it comes to events like that, it can be weird to navigate that, especially if you're somebody who's a bit more of a one-on-one type of person and you're not a
Yeah,
social,
it's a hard space for an introvert, for
beautiful
sure.
social butterfly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I the way that I've learned to deal with that is to make it about an individual experience, me talking to another person, and to make it about trying to listen to what the other person has to say and have an authentic interaction with them, as opposed to going, how can I get this person to like me? I think it's so easy to slip into that pocket. How can I get this person to think I'm interesting? Instead
Right.
of that, how about try to make that person feel like they are interesting?
Yeah.
Look them in the eyes. Be authentic with them. If somebody comes up and tries to take your attention away, don't let them take it away. I'm talking to this person over here. And I remember we just had a lovely conversation when we first met about, I forget what we were talking about. So it wasn't the content of the conversation.
It was about being introverted, I think.
Yeah. And I just, I felt, from my perspective, it was just a really nice, quick little conversation. We made a little connection with each other, and now we're talking on Skype because I remember that you were not a lunatic. So.
Yeah, there's a fair share of those too. Yeah, Yeah, that's that goes with acting too. It's like, just don't be crazy, don't be a lunatic, and then you're fine. You got
That's good for most areas of life. Just don't be crazy.
Don't be that crazy person, on your own time, be as crazy as you want. But if you're trying to foster relationships, be welcoming, be courteous. It's true. I think when two people encounter each other and they approach that they use that approach of figuring out how interesting that other person is, then it's just like a cycle of interestingness. Yeah. And it's like if you can just be a hype man for someone else, then they'll be so happy to be your hype man in return. It's just, that's just, part of, it's just pretty basic, I feel like. I
like that though. You said if you be somebody else's hype man, they will want to be your hype man. I think that's such a fantastic way to put it.
Yeah, because everyone loves a hype man, and it's so easy. And I think that it's really easy. We have, as humans, we just have a nature to take the things that bring us down, or the negative things, that some negative energy that might come our way, and just like amplify it times a million so that it drowns out all the good stuff coming your way. And sometimes it takes a little like extra good energy going someone's way to remind them of like, oh yeah, I am awesome. Like I'm, because even if you're at an event or a party or whatever, even the seemingly most confident person in the room who seems like they have it all together and they're super fly and everyone wants to talk to them, they are probably insecure as hell. Like there's no...
About surprising things that you think that they wouldn't be insecure about.
Yeah, so it's like everyone's dealing with their own shit. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's above anyone else. And if they act like it, that's not someone you want to be around anyway. That's like too much insecurity. But, I think like a healthy level of insecurity is common. And just being the most human level, just encountering people with your humanity. And there's always you can foster there's always something common that you can find with someone. Just focus on them. It's pretty, it's easy if you're extroverted, of course. But even if you're introverted, it's still easy to just focus on other people, and that takes all the pressure off yourself.
But I think introverted people tend to naturally be good listeners, and they have inquiring minds, so it's easy for them to listen to somebody ramble on about something that some other people may not think like a lot of people may not think is interesting about that. But like I try to find things about people when I interact with them that I feel like other people don't nourish in them. And I try to nourish that. I try to, whatever somebody's interested in, I try to empathize with that interest and sort of amplify that be their hype man, like you said.
Right.
And I think those sorts of things are the social skills that are very undervalued in our society.
Yeah, I agree.
Hi, Keith, on the Instagram. Also, my mom showed up. Hi, Mom.
Hey, Mom.
She said, hey, Mom. One of the things you said that I thought was interesting was you're talking about people who make you feel good about yourself. And isn't it so nice when you find a diamond of a person who,
oh my gosh,
everything that you're interested in as you're talking about it, you feel like they actually are genuinely interested in it. And when you leave a conversation with them, you feel like the most amazing, most interesting, most conquering human being that exists on earth. That's a special thing, and it's super hard to find those people. That's a good element to have in a community that you surround yourself with.
Oh yeah.
So I'm also curious. How would you define a good community?
I think a good community is aware of, um, I would say, let's see, aware of the things that unite them, aware of the things they have to work on.
Mm-hmm.
That's, so an honest community, because once you get that sort of cult mindset, it can be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And, that if there's sort of an us against them mentality, that can be dangerous as well. So there should be no judgment. There should be, no tolerance for like a ton of negativity and toxic behavior. But
it's almost like you have to curate and control the community a little bit to make sure that no negative voices get in.
Yeah, I mean, in any community, there's always going to be like infighting and little petty things here and there. But I think if you it's important to figure. For me, I think it's important to identify the people that are most conscious of the community's ability to do good, not just for themselves but for other people, and support those people with everything you can. Yeah. So for me personally, it's I've made a few videos with him. His name is Squid. That's like his messenger name.
His legal name.
Yeah, pretty much by now. He's been a messenger for like 25 years, I think. He's incredible.
So you just inherit animal names when you make it past the 20-year mark in bike messengering.
I guess no, he actually usually you get yours right away because you get it when you're a rookie, and it's not always a good name, and it stays with you forever because so
that's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, there's some of them end up with good names, but I mean, it's just a right.
Do you have one?
I don't actually have. Well, people call me Killer Kels, which I hate. They just say it because like they know I hate it, but it's just sort of, I guess, mocking my my work ethic and my sense of personal drive,
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I make sure I'm never like lazy in my work.
If you ever go to prison, just hang on to that because that'll keep.
I guess then it'll become like an intimidating name, Killer Kels. But I guess because it's just like when I first started, I had like these crazy delivery averages and like just I guess just was being a good messenger. So Killer Kels. Anyway, so Squid is he devotes so much of his time to community events and charity events and just like organizing things that he might not even gain anything from, but he knows it's important to unite people. And when you can unite people like in the name of doing something good, so even if it's like a race, like an alley cat race, but the proceeds are going to charity, like we just did the Toys for Tots alley cat and raised like a ton of money for gifts and presents for kids who might not have anything to open on Christmas, and he's always doing stuff like that to benefit whenever something tragic happens, a cyclist passes away, or someone gets injured, like it's instantly like, okay, we're throwing a race and like to raise money, come out, blah, 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 stuff like that. We're having a ride, a memorial, all of that stuff. And it's usually kind of the same people that are organizing it. And so I make sure, like, I want to support them in their like good doing,
Yeah.
So, and because of that support, it allows them to like keep doing it and like brings more people into it. So I think it's just like identifying those sort of like leaders, like non-voluntary leaders, that are kind of nourishing the community really well, and then just support them and be sure to direct like energy their way. And then just sort of a community that just if something negative happens, then they can just sort of direct that negative energy out of the community. If someone is identified as like very problematic or not deserving of the community's benefits of being included, then it's everyone kind of unites to make sure that that person doesn't create further uh, issues. So
It's almost like you have to get rid of the flat tire in the community.
just throw it out.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So
if it
I would
can't
just
be
say,
pumped up, if you can't uplift that flat tire to be a functioning tire, you have to get rid of the flat tire in the community. You have to throw it away and get a new tire.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So just an honest, conscious community, I think. It's because there's even that I would say, like on YouTube, things happen. People identified as potentially problematic, or it's not to say that those people, if it depends on how they respond, of course, to whatever sort of scandal they're in or whatever. But
Sounds like you
it's
have a
just,
very scandalous community, Kelsey.
oh, I just,
Are
I
people
mean,
throwing bicycles at each other and
oh, as a messenger? No, 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 no.
do people like run over, throw their bike at you, and then take your package and then deliver your package
Oh my
for
God,
you?
no, no, no. That would be terrible.
Yeah, people just riding around the streets of New York City with samurai swords on bikes.
Oh, that sounds intense. No, but I would say most stuff, like it's just stuff, drama that gets out of hand on social media.
Oh, interesting.
Certain, if it's someone sort of I don't know. I wouldn't want to get into it, but
Yeah.
it's
Things.
in any community. Like I was saying, in any community, like even on YouTube, there's like little scandals, little like whatever that happens, and it's just important to be like honest
Yeah.
about like how to go forward.
But and earlier on you mentioned throughout that whole last little bit you were mentioning the importance of having a community that has a goal towards good, or maybe a couple of goals towards meaning and good. And I think that was an interesting thought, because I think that our culture is deficient within the individual of meaning and a purpose. So having more of a meaning and a purpose, finding the highest meaning you can and pursuing that, makes us as individuals happier. It works the same way in the community.
Mm-hmm.
You're just multiplying the people and sending them after a common goal, and they can achieve bigger things with that. But when you're all united towards that goal, the community has a tendency to be less selfish and more focused on what they're trying to do. And in the meantime, they're building friendships. And I think that if you're looking for a community, look for that community.
I would definitely agree, and that you saying that reminds me of how I appreciate cycling in New York, and the cyclists that are here and the people like Squid that are doing their best to uplift, is that there's an idea of uplifting the little guy, and making sure that people are supported. I mean, it's like in the messenger world, there's a certain, when you got to be a rookie for a while, you got to tough it out, but certain
you got to go through the green stages and the hazing.
Yeah. But everyone recognizes that like minorities, need to be lifted up, and there's definitely like an element of even just little things like if there's a race, sometimes a bike company will sponsor all of the women's entry fees so that it encourages women to come out to race, because sometimes these functions can be a little testosterone heavy.
Men-centric.
And it kind of scares the women
a
away.
Testrofest.
Yeah. It kind of scares the women away, and so companies are really good at like supporting, covering the cost of that entry fee, or sponsoring women who want to race, like sponsoring teams of women, things like that. And I think that's something I really love about the just cyclists and that community. And creatively also, if there's a messenger who's struggling in their work, whether it's photography or videos or whatever sort of work they want to do, people have a good way of coming together to support them and encourage others to support them, try to find them opportunities. Like there's constantly throughout this like network of cyclists that are connected, people are, hey, my friend does this, like recommend them for this job or this opportunity. I've had opportunities come my way because someone recommended me. I've recommended people that I know because, and I think that's really important, not to just uplift. I find that sometimes with creative communities online, there's a certain element of like the big guys all get together and there's sort of this like,
there's a gap between the big people and the smaller people. Yeah, absolutely.
And I wish, like, in all ways that there could be more of a, like, bridging that gap the way that I notice it within the cycling community, because it's really beautiful when you have people who sort of have, like, influence, just immediately welcoming people who maybe don't, and, like, just bringing everyone together. And it allows those people to flourish more, and the entire community grows, whereas sometimes with the like that mentality of like, oh, we're creating a big club and because we have this big club, all of us are going to get more successful and you guys can just like watch, you can just watch us grow. And when then those people aren't nourished, then they feel like they don't have their own community, so then they're left to either find their own or just kind of desperately claw at this one, hoping to climb that ladder, which is kind of sad and doesn't really result in like any sort of inspiration or drive for anyone. Because I think the most, like, whenever I've felt the most drive and inspiration is because someone supported me in it. Like when I said I want to make a film about women and the bike messenger women of New York, and people were like, yes, like, that was a big part of like, okay, yes, I should do this, So if you have someone supporting you in that, and like I always, if people message me like I want to film videos or I want to I want to get into cycling or I want to do a vlog, but I'm not sure where to start, like I always do my best to take time. Like that's a really important thing, to take time out of my day to nourish those people who maybe don't have any leads or connections or really where to start, and just be the person that I would have wanted to talk to when I was starting and figuring everything out. Be always, I think the more you grow, and if you reach the successful levels you want to be at, just remember where you were when you started and think, what kind of person I wish I would have encountered at that time, and be that for other people.
Yeah. I think it's the job of the small creator to be cool. And when I say be cool, I mean be a genuinely kind and good person that's not trying to take from the community, be a leech on the creator community.
No.
But at the same time, that the people up top need to be intentional about trying to integrate those smaller people in as much as possible.
Intention, yes.
Yeah, and make that a constant part of what they're trying to be up to look for people who have talent. Not just everyone, because I do think hierarchies are important. I think there's a good function to them. But to look for the people who have talent and who are working very hard and diligently for success, and be welcoming to them, be engaging with them, and help them integrate into the society of bike messengers or YouTube creators or macaroni sculpture makers or spaghetti noodle
my favorite people in New
TV
York
builders.
Could be that.
Sure.
Just to highlight some examples, I guess it's for the people watching if they don't quite understand what we're talking about. In New York, specifically, my favorite people that are doing that are Brett Conti and John Reyes. I don't know if you watch him. He rides scooters.
I've never heard of him. I'll have to check him out.
So he's amazing because he has built this huge scooter community in New York. So this is like trick scooters.
Scooter community.
Yeah. Scoomunities.
Scoomunity.
So
Exciting.
He's always thinking about how can I get these kids together, because so scootering, like pro scootering, like trick riding and stuff, it kind of evolved from skating, and well, I don't know. I mean, there's whatever the history is, but it became this, I guess, I don't know, big phenomenon amongst younger kids who
Right.
wanted to get into some kind of action sports, but skating is already like it's so big.
Yeah.
Skateboarding is so big, and
Oh, they found it. They found
so
a niche that's more of a niche than skateboarding.
but also like companies found like some skate companies are kind of feel a little threatened because the younger kids they want to start early because there's so much access like to on social media and stuff they're seeing all like these skateboarders and this and that they want to start early in some sort of action sports but when you're so little on a skateboard you can get hurt a lot more
Mm.
but and it's like it's hard to ride a skateboard like it's hard to learn but a
Oh,
scooter is just
believe
really
me, I
easy.
know. I
Yeah.
got inspired by John Hill and tried to learn an ollie and almost died.
Hard. I'm still working on my ollie. Months later, it takes
It's
forever.
it's
But
so incredibly difficult.
yeah,
And
and so the
I scraped up my new shoes like 3 days after
yeah,
getting them. And
shoes
I
are
was
done.
like, oh my gosh,
Shoes are
I
done.
they're gone. It's all
Yeah.
over. They
So
can't
the
be beautiful anymore.
entry level of skill required for skating is a lot higher, whereas the
Yeah.
entry level to ride a scooter is a bit lower. So there are all these like kids in New York, but there's not a lot of community to unite them, and there's also the possibility of that lack of community for the youth can result in like bad influence, substance abuse, like that kind of stuff. It's common in urban communities. So John is incredible with some people are too like they might be a little they would just kind of scoff and like, oh, I don't hang out with little kids and like I'm too cool for that and whatever. But he's incredible. He devotes like every weekend he's like doing something saying everybody come ride. We're here. We're at he has and all of I've seen just over watching his content that the kids who would just be like following him around because they think he's so cool and they love him and can't do any tricks, like can't even do a little jump. All of a sudden, these kids are doing like tail whips, they're doing little bride flips, they're doing all the things like manuals because he, made a place for them
Yeah.
to grow. And he just
He
selflessly,
made a little garden for them.
yes, he did. And he just watered it with a little scooter.
Watered all
cannon.
the little scooter kids.
Yeah.
Oh,
And so,
that's such a special thought.
yeah, and so because of that, like there's just this big community, and he focuses on that primarily. He doesn't like think he's elite just because he has however many subscribers or whatever. Same thing with Brett. Whenever he's in the city, he does his best to connect with like different artists, people doing different things in different creative ways, and highlight them so that his vlog is not just like the Brett show. It's the human show. It's like
'Cause,
different humans.
Brett's vlog is so unique in the sense that it seems like he's always interacting with like three different people
Yeah.
within any hour of any given day. It's
I
like
don't know how he
three
does
like
it.
he's a force of nature when it comes to socializing.
That's like 12 meetings a day. I'm just like, how do you coordinate that? I have a hard time with like one. I'm going to check my tofu really quick.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's very important. She's
right
going to
back.
check her tofu. We shall return very shortly. I will ask her what she would say to somebody who wants to have more of a community around them. Hi, Instagram Live. I'm sorry I've been neglecting you. I've been trying to keep the conversation going. I didn't want to break the personal connection that I have going on with Kelsey over here. She's checking on her tofu. I hope the audio sounds good. Like I said, it's incredibly experimental. By the way, I'm talking to my friend Kelsey. You can find her if you scroll up to the top. She's one of the first people that joined Kelso Paradiso. You can find her on Instagram. And now she's back. How was your tofu?
It's great. Beautifully golden brown.
Oh, great. Very good. Okay, so the last thing, I think this is a good spot to wrap up. The last thing I wanted to ask you was what would you say to the lonely creator who lives in Nebraska and wants to engage with a community and feed that part of them?
So I would say, wow, Nebraska, that's tough.
I try to ask good questions.
I mean, follow your, like, if something's calling to you, I mean, I can't just be like, oh, I feel like the answer people always give to that is like, well, your local community, blah, blah, blah. But like, I'm not a native New Yorker, I moved here. So I moved to where the community is. If that's calling to you, do that.
So don't be scared to move.
Yeah, don't be scared to move. Do your best to study and identify a community before you make that jump. Like figure out, because like I said, that transition period of finding my community in New York, it was a few years.
Mm.
So don't think that just because you move somewhere, it's just going to spring up. It's like it's not, going to be instant. But if you can sort of figure out if you're going to move somewhere, if there's a community you think would embrace you, then obviously you have a bit of a advantage there. But if you feel that you can build that one of your strengths is getting people together, then look around in your own community, or even if it doesn't exist at all. So either identify like what's missing and how you can fill that void, or figure out if there's a way to create a community, because that's probably like the hardest thing to do, but the most rewarding, I would say. If you have no community at all where you live in the thing that you're interested in. But I would say if it's something like creativity, filming,
And then within that, you have sub niches, right? Like you'll have
yeah,
the tech community and the
yeah,
creative
yeah,
YouTube world, or you'll have
it's,
the
it's,
family vlogger community, or you'll have
yeah,
the bike messenger community, or you'll have the filmmaker community.
mhm,
That can be tough too, because you might see less of that sub community where you live.
right. But I think because of the accessibility now of like cameras and equipment and computers and the internet, that you're going to be able to find it, even if it's just
The
one
U.S.
other.
Postal Service.
Yeah, I mean that's the
It's the standard, you know.
the Pony Express. I think even if it's just one person, if you can just find one peer that you feel like a sense of community from, just on a one-to-one basis, that's so much strong. You can even work together to build a team that builds a community from there. All you need is like one person to start. Then maybe it becomes 3 people, then 4 people, then and do your best to because messenger communities are not just individual to the city they're in. They're pretty well connected all over the world, I would say, probably in a way that outdoes many other communities, because it's the kind of thing where you could just roll up in a city and already know that you'll have friends and a place to stay. Like I mean, messengers are pretty commonly united and hospitable like that,
Mhm.
just because we all understand each other. Um, so do your best to see if you can use sort of a worldwide community to then bring it back into your local community, and like it's kind of a symbiotic growth.
Mhm.
So figure out your parts in both. Um, but I think also that there is much to be said for like urban centers.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
I think especially like our Earth is so populated that urban living is really like the focus of the future and everything, because we
Mhm.
have to figure out a way to make it sustainable. So even if it just involves moving from your small town to the nearest city, it doesn't have to be New York or LA. It could be, Salt Lake City.
Mhm.
I think it will benefit you just to be in that sort of the pace of things moving, and the increasing your chances of being able to cross paths with other people in the whatever thing you're interested in, and then being able to grow community from there. So
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah.
And what I would add to that is that if you're in a place where you're physically not where the epicenter of the community you want to be around is, one, it might be a good idea to move, but maybe you can't move. Maybe you can't move right now. There's all sorts of
Yeah.
variables. And for the time being, I think one thing is to look for any people around you that you can physically meet up with. Find them
Hmm.
on Instagram, send them a message,
Oh
and
yeah.
say, I would love to go, just like, let's just go have coffee, right? Just start there. A lot of people won't even start there. Start there, go engage with them, go buy them a cup of coffee, be a good friend, and learn about them, invest in them a little bit. That's one thing, because a 2-person community is better than a 1-person community. And then the
Hmm.
other thing is that on the internet, you can find creative ways to engage with people, even if you're not physically. I'm doing this right now. I'm speaking with you.
Yeah.
You're in New York City, and I'm in Salt Lake City, right? I decided, hey, there's a lot of people that I really enjoy talking to around the world, and specifically a few in New York City. Why don't I use this lovely thing called a lot of bandwidth on my internet service provider, and have like real conversations with, I mean, it's the top half of your body, right? I only see your head and your shoulders, but that's okay. It's still very authentic, and we're connecting and we're building a relationship. And so that's the way that I've been able to do a lot of this without having to physically be around the people who I'm interested in. So there are plenty of different ways, and don't hold yourself back in your mind, I suppose.
Don't underestimate what you have available to you. You know, don't put limitations on just because of the place that you're in or the means that you have. It's really good to just think without limitations at all, and just keep doing. Because say your community is you're really into cosplay, but you feel like there's no one around you that's into that. Like you just don't have a community. Just keep working on yourself and your cosplaying. I don't know. I don't really know cosplay, but
I wonder if there's like a bike messenger cosplay community.
I mean,
that sounds great, right?
I mean, like they're cosplaying messengers?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
you have the power to start that, Kelsey.
Yeah, I mean, I would be made fun of for sure, but
you need to be authentic to yourself. You need to be authentic to this idea, this dream that I'm implanting in your life right now.
I guess you could, if you really wanted to cosplay a messenger, you'd probably have to let's be honest, you'd probably have to smoke a lot of weed because
Quick interruption. I think my live stream is going to end in 2 minutes because they have a limit. Thank you guys for hanging out. I've been talking to Kelsey. It's been a good time. It's going to keep going until it ends. Thank you for hanging out. You'll see it on my YouTube channel when this video is done, and also in the podcast. Okay, carry on. Cosplaying bike messenger community.
Yeah. Focus on making yourself the best version of that you can be, so that when that global community presents itself via Instagram or YouTube or whatever social media, that you will be ready and you will be like on your game, so that you can just step seamlessly into that community online. And then that way it can build, there are a lot of creators that don't live in New York but are here a lot. Like you don't have to live here just to be part of what's happening. So just focus on, embracing whatever community you have currently and just being at the top of your game, so that you're like a quick pick, for
Well, it's almost like you should spend the time where you can't move because I don't know, maybe you're 16, right?
Exactly.
You should spend that time getting yourself ready for the day when you physically step in the same room with the people who are the ones that you really want to be engaging with. That's great advice.
Yes, because it will happen. You just have to be ready for it,
And patience. Patience. Yeah. Very good. Okay, that was awesome. I think that this is a good place to end it. Thank you so much, Kelsey, for spending some time with me this evening and talking about creative things. And that is it. Very good. And we're done. Oh, I have 6 seconds over here. Bye, guys. Thanks for hanging out. That is it for this one. Thank you so much for watching if you made it this far. I would love to hear about your struggles or what you've learned about integrating yourself with a creative community. Bye.